Kalkadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Avodah Zarah, Daf Yomi, Daf Nun Bet Amud Aleph 52a1. Says the Gemara, Mikana Meru. From here we say, Avodat Kochavim, Shel Oved Kochavim en Asura al Sheteaved, Shel Yisrael Miyad. Right? An Oved Kochavim that belongs to a Goy, meaning an Avodah Zarah that belongs to the Goy, is not Asur until they serve it. But if it belongs to a Jew, immediately. Yeah? So he says like this, Veha Bekelim Ukimnala. Says, 1 second, I thought that you were talking about Kelim. Because when it said over there, right, right? So therefore, how can you learn that the Avodah itself until they actually serve it? Samarkra, the Pasuk says, Asher atem yoshim otam et Elohem, makish Elohem lekelim. We're making a kesh, their gods to utensils. Just like kelim. They're not going to become asur until they are served. So to their gods, they're not going to be asur until they're served. Rabbi Akiva de lo makish amalecha, but according to Rabbi Akiva, that he doesn't make a kesh, what is he going to tell you? Et is a pasek. Yeah, you heard pasek. Et ifsik lainyan. Right? It's making a ifsek. When it says et, it's making a ifsek, and therefore you cannot come and make a kesh. You cannot be makish. כן, אתה לא יכול להקיש כל דבר. יש כאלה שרוצים להקיש כל דבר. Rabbi Ishmael, but according to Rabbi Ishmael, Ashkechan, we understand Avodah Kochavim shel Avodah Kochavim. Then Asurat sheteaved. But the Yisrael, how does he know that if it belongs to a Jew, it's a sur immediately? So he says, svarahu, it's a svara. If right now for the goy, it's only if it's going to be served, so therefore for the Jew, it should happen immediately. So he says, what are you talking about? Maybe for the Jew, it never becomes Avodah Zarah. So he says, Hashta geniza baya yitzur de mitzvah. He says, what? You have to put it in geniza. It's not going to become a sur? What does that mean? So he says, no, it should be the exact same law as the goy. Right? Which means only when it's served. Right? When it's going to be served, then it becomes a sur. Samarkra, the Pasuk says, the second that they made the egel zahav, it's a sur. The second that they made it, nobody served it. They made it, right? It's done. Asked the Gemara, that's only to say that he sinned. But not to make it a sur. You're right. Okay, he made an Avodah Zarah. If that's it, he made something. So, okay, call it a sin. But don't say that it's a sur bana from then. So, Amarkra, the Pasuk says, Arura ish asher yaseh pesel u'masecha, which is a toavat Hashem. Asher yaseh mishat asiyah kam leberur. Already from the time of making the Avodah Zarah, he already has an irur. So says the Gemara, fine. But that's maybe an arur. But not that it's a sur. Ema hani milele meikam legavra be'arur. It's lo mitzra. So answers the Gemara, toavat Hashem ktiv, but it's written, it's a toavat Hashem. Right? What does that mean? It's already a toavah. It's already an abomination, even though before it was served. But the second was made, it's an abomination. But according to Akiva, davar mevili de tava. For him, it's only something that's bringing to a tava. It in itself is not a tava yet, until they actually serve it. But it brings to a tava. Okay? But Rabbi Akiva, and according to Rabbi Akiva, how do we know that it's going to become a sur immediately if it belongs to a goy? Meaning, Shitat Rabbi Akiva was opposite of Chachamim. That immediately once the goy makes it, it's a sur miyad. How does he know that? Amarula Ula says, the Pasuk says, the second that they were pisalo, which means that he formed it, it becomes Eloah. It becomes a god. So for the goyim, the second that they form it, asur miyad. Ve'idach, another Tana, so he says, he needs the Tana of Yosef. The Tana of Yosef, minayin lo'oved kochavim. Sheposel Eloah. How do we know that a goy could come and be posel the Eloka? So he says, Shneimar, pesile Elohem tisufum b'esh. The Idach and the other one, what does he learn? He learns it from Shmuel. The Shmuel Rami, but Shmuel asked the contradiction. K'tiv, it's written, Lo tachmon kesef zava alehem, uchtiv lakachta lach. That means you shouldn't covet. You shouldn't come and you shouldn't be jealous of kesef zava alehem. And then it says, lakachta lach, you could take it for yourself. How does that work? So he says, pesalo le'eloha. If he made the god, lo tachmon. Pesalo me Eloha. But if it was mevatel ze, so then you could take it. Yeah? Rabbi Akiva, and according to Rabbi Akiva, Ashkechan Avodah Kochavim shel Oved Kochavim, we found an Avodah Zarah that belongs to an Oved Kochavim. The Asura miyad, that it's going to be Asura immediately. And Yisrael at Shteaveh minana. How do we know that if it belongs to a Jew, it's only once you serve it? So he says, I'm Rabbi Yudah Markad, the Pasuk says, V'sam baseter. When it says V'sam baseter, Achi asal advarim shebaseter. It has to be things that you do in seter, which is serving it. The Yidach and the other one, How do we know that if a Jew makes an avodah zarah, you have to put it in genizah? Shneimar v'samba seter, so you have to actually hide it. V'idach, in other mandama, Rabbi Kiva, he says he learns it from Rabbi Chasta in the name of Rav. Ta'amar Rav Chasta Marav, minay avodah kovim shel Yisrael. How do we know that if a Jew makes an avodah zarah, you have to put it in genizah? He says Shneimar lo tita lecha asherah kol etz etzel mizbach. So you're not going to plant an asherah tree by a mizbeach of Hashem. Just like the mizbeach, you have to put it in genizah. When you finish using the mizbeach, you put it in genizah. So to here, you also have to put it in genizah. Ve'idach, another shita. Hal mibayle lech lerakish, yinuni lech reshakish. Ta'amad shakish, which says that shakish, kol ha'ma'amin dayan she'eno agun. If you're going to place a judge that is not fitting on the tzibur, kilu note'a asherah b'Yisrael. It's like you're putting an asherah tree in Yisrael. Meaning when you put a judge which he's not fitting, right? He's not fitting to be a dayan. And you put him there, it's like putting an asherah. This week's parasha. We're going to read it tomorrow. This is tomorrow's daf, by the way. Okay. Right? But it says, Lo tita lecha asherah koletz. But if he's going to come and put Tamidei Chachamim, kilu netaot mizbeach, then he put it by the mizbeach. Shneimar, etzel mizbeach Hashem. So he comes and he says like this. He says, right? We're talking about now that he learned it from Rav Chasta. Okay, and we just learned about putting a dayan, a proper dayan on Klal Yisrael, and if you don't put a proper dayan. By Rav Nuna comes and he says as follows. He asks as follows. If a person is going to come and he's going to heat up a utensil, right? It was broken, so he comes and he starts, hitting it, whatever it is, in order to fix it. So what's halacha? Right now, again, he was using it for avodah zarah. Avodah kochavim the man, right? Avodah kochavim the avodah zarah. Are we talking about now l'shem avodata? If you're going to tell me it's of an avodah zarah that it belongs to a goy, so ben mishma ben kiva mashma avodah kochavim, it's mashma avodah zarah. Now, if it's going to be a shimush on avodah kochavim, it's not a sur until they actually serve it. But if you're going to tell me that avodah kochavim belongs to a Jew, so who does it go according to? It's going to according to Rabbi Kiva. It's not going to become a sur until you serve it. So mishamshia is a question. Obviously, it's going to be until you serve it. But if you're going to go according to Rabbi Ishmael, the amar asura miyad, that it's going to be asur miyad. My mishamshim gam b'minyan. What about mishamshim of mishamshim? Mahatam, just like over there, you have do until you serve it, so to here until you serve it. Or dilma minagamar, you're learning it from the avodah zarah itself. That just like it's going to be prohibited immediately, so to the shamshim, it's going to be asur prohibited immediately. So my idea the kami baile ritechli. So why do I need ritechli? Even if you made it, why is it dafka if you fixed it? Even making the utensil is the same question. So says the Gemara, Rav Amruna mishum tumai yishana kami baile. He's asking the question because of tumai yishana. The Tanam, as we learned in the Mishnah, kli matachot tishtehenu mekablehen tmin. When you have a kli matechet, so any type of a kli matechet, whether it's pshutim or mekablehen, it's going to be tameh. Pshutim means it's flat, right? It doesn't have a receptacle. It's just flat. Or mekablin, it's going to be tameh. Nishtabru, if it breaks, taharu, so then it becomes tahor. Chazav v'asan kalim, if you made it into your utensil again, so again it goes back to the same tum'ah. The hachi kami baile, so that's the question. Ki hadra tum'ah, when it comes back to tum'ah, or hanimil tum'ah doraita, or even tum'ah dorabanan, right? Or maybe there's no difference. So that's the question that he asked. So he says, "V'tayim itzibaile shar tum'ah dorabanan." So why don't you ask the question on any other tum'ah dorabanan? So he says, "Chada migo chada kami baile." You're right. He's asking one safek from another safek. Tum'ah dorabanan, does it go back or not? If you're going to tell me that it doesn't go back, what about tum'ah of the kochavim? Is it because of the chumrav of the kochavim? Do we make it like a doraita or not? Teiku, we don't have an answer. Okay, capish until here? We don't have an answer. Fine. By minera Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he asks a question from Rabbi Yanai. Takrovet avodah kochavim shelo chalim. What happens if they brought, for the avodah zarah, they brought food? Imagine they brought an entire plate, and it was for avodah zarah. So he says, what's halacha? Or does it help bitul to purify it, that it's not tameh anymore or not? So says the Gemara, kelim. You should have asked the exact same thing on kelim. So he says, kelim lo kamibayle, it's not a question. Just put it in a mikveh. So tumanami batala, so it's going to be batel. But what about food? Food you can't put in the mikveh. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. Why don't you ask it on the avodah kochavim itself? So he says, avodah kochavim gufa lamibayle, it's not a question. Why? Nun bet amubet, 52b. The kevan the isura batil, because once it's going to be a batel the isur, tumah nami batla. It's also going to be batel, right? The tum'ah. So ki kamibayle, one is a question only to do with the krovel avodah krovim shel ochlin, only to do with it brought a korban to avodah zarah, but it's food. So what's halacha? Given the isurei labatil, since it's not going to be batil the isur like Rav Yidal, because it doesn't help bitul for avodah zarah to change it into a ter. So tuma nami lo batala, so it's not going to be batel also the tuma, meaning it's still going to be tameh. Or dilmar maybe isur doraita lo batil. It's not isur doraita is not going to be batel, but tuma drabanan it is going to be batel. Right? Why? Because it's the Rabbanan, it's not the Raita. So therefore it could be Batel, and therefore you could have this food. Teiku, again, we don't have the answer. Teiku, no answer. Fine, next question. Ba'min Rabbi Yosef ben Shalom Rabbi, asked Rabbi Yosef ben Shalom from Rabbi, Kelim sheshimshu ba'en bevet chonyo. What about the kelim that they used in Bet Chonyo? You remember what Bet Chonyo was? You remember that Chonyo, the son, Shimon HaTzadik, right? This was the son of Shimon HaTzadik. So Chonyo, right? What happened is that he went and he built another Bet HaMikdash in Alexandria of Egypt. You remember? No? Shimon HaTzadik came and he wanted to make his younger son into the Kohen Gadol because he was a big Talmid Chacham. The younger son, he felt, you know what? It's not kavod. I have to give it to my older brother. So he went and he gave it to the older brother. But the older brother was an Amaretz. He knew nothing. But then after he gave him the kavod, all of a sudden that's when people regret it. And he regretted giving it to him. So now he wanted to get rid of him. So how does he get rid of him? He basically put him on women's clothing to be the Kohen Gadol. And then he brought him into the Bet HaMikdash. And then they were going to come. They were going to kill him. They were going to kill him. What's this guy doing? He's coming, putting on women's clothing as Kohen Gadol. So they were going to kill him. And then he went and he told them, it was my brother. I don't know any of these things. I'm clueless. My brother. So they were going to kill the brother. So he ran away and he opened up his own Bet HaMikdash in Alexandria of Egypt. He went away to Egypt. The son, the younger one, the younger son of Shimon HaTzadik. And he built a Bet HaMikdash, right? Everything, almost he was a huge Talmid Chacham. He built a Bet HaMikdash in Egypt. Nah. So that was called Bet Chonyo, because the son's name was Chonyo. So the question is, can you use those utensils in the Bet HaMikdash? So obviously we're going to say that it's not considered Avodah Zarah. Because if you're going to tell me it's a house of Avodah Zarah, obviously you can't use it in the Bet HaMikdash. So it means you have to say that it's talking about actually a good Bet HaMikdash. What do you mean good? You're not allowed to make a Bet HaMikdash outside of Yerushalayim, but a kavanah that it wasn't of an Avodah Zarah. That's the kavanah. So the question is, can I use those utensils in the Bet HaMikdash? So he says, the Tzram, as we went to the Mishnah, Kohanim sheshimshu b'Beit Chonyo, lo yishimshu b'Mikdash Yerushalayim. Any Kohen that served in the Bet HaMikdash in Chonyo, right, the Bet HaMikdash, he's not allowed to serve in the Bet HaMikdash of Yerushalayim. Right? It was a knas. Ve'eno tzarich lomar l'davar acher, kol v'chomer, it's Avodah Zarah itself. So Kohanim would have rabbanan. Maybe they only give a knas to the Kohanim. Why? Mishum de b'nei dianinu, because they know. Meaning a Kohen, he's got that. What are you going to Bet Chonyo? What are you doing? So then they give you a knas. But kelim don't know any better. A utensil. They use one of these big, large forks, you know, like they don't know any better. So therefore, maybe if it was used in Bet Chonyo, you could still use it in Bet HaMikdash. Samalei come and he says, Asuri man, it's Asur. And Mikra, Ayabiyadenu Shechonu, we had a pasuk for it, but we forgot it. So right, that means they had a mekor to be osed from a pasuk, but they forgot it. So eighth way, they're going to come and they're going to ask the following question. All the utensils which the Chaz, he came and he did like Milah and all these things. My love, are we not talking about Hechanu that Velinu that they came and they did Tevilah? Hikdashnu that they made it Kadosh again and then you're allowed to use it again? So Amaleh, he says, Baruch atah l'shamayim shechzarta li avedati. You're right. Baruch Hashem that you brought me back my avedah. Hechanu was that they put in Ginizah. Hikdashnu that they made other ones, which means that they were prohibited to use them for the Bet HaMikdash. The same halacha applies to the kelim of Bet Chonyo, that they made a knas that they're not allowed to come and use it in the Bet HaMikdash. So Lema Misayale is a proof of Mizrachit Tzvoni Ba'u Genazu Bet Chashmonai Tavnei HaMizbeach Sheshkur in Yavan. So basically the Chashmonaim came and they put the stones of the Mizbeach in Ginizah underneath. Because they made it into Avodah Zarah. So Rav Papa says, Hatam Krash Kach V'Darash. He found the pasuk and he was Doresh. They came the Pritzim, the Yivanim, and they were Mechalel, and they desecrated. Halal is to desecrate. Just like a Kohen that gets married to a Grusha, he becomes halalim the children. Halal. A dead body is called a halal. Yeah? Yeah, gematria 68. Yeah. Amri, so they said that in Shevet Chashmonai, they went and they said, Hechinave, what are we going to do? Nitberinu, if we're going to break it, the Avanim Shlemot Amanachmana. The Torah says that they have to be Shalem. The Nasrinu, if we're going to cut it, Lotini Falem Mersen, you're not allowed to come and put any metal on it. Amanachmana. So what are you going to do? Vamai, says the Gemara, break it, and then take them to themselves, like, for Genizah. So he says, Milo Amar Rebbe or Rabbi Oshaya. ביקשו לגנוז כל כסף וזהב שבעולם משום כסף הדבר של ירושלים. ואבינו בה, we said, ירושלים אבי ירובה דאומה. He says, what? ירושלים is the majority of the world. אלא מבעיה ביקשו לגנוז דינרה דיריאנה, טוריאנה שייפה. They wanted to come and to put this מטבע of dinar, right, and to put it, into the מפני טבעה של ירושלים, because of the מטבעות that they used to use in ירושלים. עד שמצאו למקרא מן התורה, until they found that it's going to be מותר. ובאו פריצים וחיללוה. So you see from here, that it's mutar, it went out in chulin, and you could do whatever you want with it. So he says, no, hatam lo yishtamshu ba'lu egavod. They didn't use these matbeot, these coins, were not used for the Bet HaMikdash. So that's why you're allowed to do that. Hacha here, they use the mizbeach for the Bet HaMikdash, for Kadosh Baruch Hu. Once Hashem uses it, it's not the derech eretz that any normal person would use it. So for them just to break it, and then that they could use it for whatever they want, this is a mizbeach. They can't use it. Any normal person cannot use it. Mishnah on the bottom of Nun Bet Amud Bet. Ove kochavim mevatel ove kochavim shelo. Ove kochavim can be mevatel another ove kochavim of his, v'shel chavro and his friend. Yisrael cannot be mevatel ove kochavim, right? Mevatel ove kochavim mevatel shel Mashiach. If you're mevatel ove kochavim, automatically you're going to be mevatel also the mishamshim of the ove kochavim, right? The subordinates. Yitel mishamshia, but if you only mevatel the subordinates, right? Mishamshim mutarin, but the actual avodah zarah is still going to be asur. This is pashut, right? Simple logic. Yeah. Okay. Says the Gemara, what? Common sense. Matni Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi comes and he teaches to Rabbi Shimon Berei his son. One Oved Kochavim, one goy could annul his own avodah zarah and avodah zarah of his friend. Amale Rabbi. So says Rabbi Shimon to Rabbi, Shanita lanu biyaldutcha, right? You taught us when you were young. Oved Kochavim v'tel shelo v'shel Yisrael, not shel chavero. Meaning, you taught us when you were younger that a goy could annul his own avodah zarah and avodah zarah of Israel, but not avodah zarah of his friend. So he says, "The Israel become vatel. Who could come and be vatel the avodah kochavim of Israel? V'sam beseter chtiv. It's written v'sam beseter. So Amar Rabbi Hillel Rabbi Vales. Interesting. You heard the name Rabbi Vales. So he says, "Lo nitzecha." Yeah, he says, "Lo nitzecha." If you have a shutafut with it, that's when he can vatel the chelek of Yisrael as well. So what happened? Why is it that when his youth he thought one thing, and then when he got older he thought something else? And when he was younger, he thought that the Jew is doing it al dat the Avodah Kochavim. So since the Avodah Kochavim himself is being vatel, so therefore he's also being vatel the Yisrael. He said, no, but then the Yisrael is doing it for himself. So therefore he says only the goy is doing it for himself. He's not doing it for the Yisrael. That's why he's not vatel for the Yisrael. Some people thought this on the Seifa. Yisrael and vatel, meaning a Yisrael cannot be vatel and avodah zarah of a goy. So he says, Pshita, obviously. So Amar Rabbi Hillel, says Rabbi Hillel, Berei de Rabbi Vales, Nun Gimel Amud Aleph on the top. We're going to the Mishnah. Right? Lo nitzecha, what are we dealing with? Sheyesh ba v'shutufut, you have a partnership. The Kamashmalan comes teach you, she said, he could be vatel his own. Meaning the Jew cannot be vatel of the goy, but the goy could be vatel his own. Some people taught on the right that if it belongs to a Jew, there's no such thing as a bit, but bitul. It doesn't exist. So what does that mean? My olamit. If it's got partnership. The Kamashmalan decided that so it's mashma that the Jew does it on his own, and therefore it's never considered batel, because basically the goy cannot be batel for the Jew, and the Jew is doing it on his own accord.